Just a quick recap where we are now in our journey. So as you know, most of you are probably aware, this book study series has 5 major chapters. We just completed chapter 1 where we laid the foundation, what guardrails mean, why guardrails are important. We learned that guardrails direct and protect us. Guardrails are a blessing. And these are there not to make life miserable, but in fact, as we observe guardrails in our life, this is how we thrive. Last week, we started with chapter 2. Brother Ariel kicked off the series. We will have 3 lessons in chapter 2, talking about guardrails in friendships. Last week, we learned about a story in the New Testament. Sergius Paulus had to realize that there is a very unhealthy friendship in his life with this fellow named Elymas. And we learned last week, sometimes part of putting guardrails in our relationships, we need to prune. We need to cut off some unhealthy, toxic things in our life, friendships in our life. That's part of growing. We need to let go. We need to be pruned so that we can grow. So we will continue to learn about how do we thrive in friendships. What sort of guardrails do we need to put in place so that we may be able to live a life that is, all that the Lord has planned for us. So I'm going to ask you at this time to seriously think about this question. I'm going to give you a minute or so. Who were the top 5 friends in this season of your life? So if you take out your spouse, your brother, your sister, who are the top 5 friends in this season of your life? And I also highlight in this season, because, sometimes we have declared BFFs. Like if you're already as old as I am, you probably have BFFs from high school. And I do have that. But the truth is, I've not spoken to her in the last 3 months. But when we catch up, it's like walang lumipas na oras. But I wouldn't say she's a top 5 friend in this season of my life, just because in the past 3 months, we have not even spoken. So think about that. So maybe in this season, we can define it in the past 3 months. Who have you hung out the most? Whose presence have you enjoyed the most? Sino yung takbuhan nyo when you're not feeling so good? What we're going to talk about today is how to have thriving friendships. And a good place to start is to look at the closest people in your life now. And against, these 5 friends, we're going to go through what we call a friendship checklist. So what we're going to do for the whole of our conversation today, there are going to be 3 points in our checklist that we will talk about. And hopefully after every point, I want you to look back at your list of 5 people. How are my friends? How are my friendships faring against these guardrails, these quality control things to make sure that the friendships I keep in my life are productive, are honoring before the Lord. So we're going to look at several passages, but if you wrap them all together, hopefully the one truth that you walk away with from today is this, that the quality of your friendships impacts the quality of your life. We will see this come to life with the many verses that we will read today. But also, even if you don't look at the Bible, but just, all the research that has been done, I don't know if any of you majored in psychology here, there's a lot of research that proves there's strong correlation between a strong, healthy, support network, friends, with the quality of your life. People who they say struggle with depression or, a lot of issues usually don't have a very healthy friendship network. So whether you look at it from the lens of the Bible or from the lens of, literature, even in secular literature, this is a very common sense theme that the quality of our friendship impacts the quality of our life. Good friendships lead to good quality of life. And that's why we're doing the friendship checklist today to help you think about, have sort of like maybe just a fresh look at your friendships. Are my friendships optimal? Because if the quality of your friendships is optimal, your quality of life is optimal. And that's what we want to look at today. We're just going to have 3 points to look at. So we're going to kick off with the first one. And the first friendship checklist item is direction. What does this mean? As you look at the 5 names you've listed in your list, or you can even expand the list if you want to, ask the question, what direction is my life taking as a result of the friendships that I have? Proverbs 13:20, where it says, walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fool suffers harm. We'll focus just more on the first part of the passage. This amplifies the point we've talked about direction. Those you hang out with, you will get influence. Your life travels a certain direction depending on the people you surround with. How do you become wise? And Brother Jan talked about this in his preaching a couple of weeks back. How to get wisdom. Surround yourself with wise people. You walk with the wise, and you become wise. And truth is, you can change wise with any other positive attribute, and it will become true. So look at your 5 friends. Maybe surround yourselves who are physically active, and you will become physically active. And I know this is quite true for our lights. Once they started going on a bouldering, when you have bouldering friends, you end up starting to boulder yourself, to go into bouldering yourself, right? Or walk with those who eat healthy, and you end up eating healthy. But on the other side, walk with those who only rise, and you will also go only rise. So you can almost change, anything in this verse, and it will be true. Just to amplify the point around direction. What direction is your life taking as a result of your friends? So again, I'm going to give you time. Bring out that list. Kung hindi kayo gumawa ng list, promise, make it now because you will miss out on our conversation. Go back to your list. What direction is your life taking as a result of your friendships? I know, for instance, one of the people I wrote in my list, because that person is really very disciplined with a skincare routine. I've started to care about sunblock and moisturizing in a good way kasi tumatanda ka na, Janina. Kailangan ingatan yung balat mo. And I'm so thankful that God sent me a friend who's so disciplined with skincare routine that those who walk with people with good skincare routine become more conscious of their skincare routine. In my case, that was very true. So think, are the 5 people in your list drawing you to good direction? Are they bringing you in the right place as a result of the friendships that you have with them? But we also look at the flip side. When we talk about direction, it can take you in a really positive direction. But as we see in another proverb, in Proverbs 22:24-25, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. Look at your 5 friends. Maiinitin ba ang ulo nila? Because if you surround yourself with people who complain over the littlest things, the next thing you know, you're learning their ways and you also complain about the littlest things. When you surround yourself with marites, when you surround yourself with people who just love to gossip, guess what? You can learn their ways, and the next thing you know, you're also craving for gossip. Is there anything about them that's probably drawing you to the wrong direction? Then maybe either we apply what Brother Ariel told us last week, is this a time to prune some relationships? Because they're taking me farther away. Are these people too lukewarm in their relationship with God that you yourself are starting to feel lukewarm about your relationship with God? If that is the case, then maybe the solution is we prune. We let go. We start building intentional relationships with people whose life, are traveling in the right direction and you want to be in that same stream. Then maybe you start hanging out with people like them. So that is the first point. Direction. What direction is your life taking as a result of the friendships that you have? Just one more proverb to highlight this point. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That is the impact of good quality in your life. Yung matalas, sharp, brilliant, shining, in their top shape. As you surround yourself with people who are so excellent, who are so sharp, guess what happens to you? It sharpens you too. And another thing I'd have to caveat about our conversation today, a lot of this I'll be sharing of myself too, so hopefully that's fine with you. For those of you who are friends with me on social media, I think I only post 3 types of things. I post about my family, I post about our friends here in church, and if there are people you don't recognize, they're probably our friends from our school community. And this is an example of it. A personal story I share just around the point of direction and the influence that my friends have made on the direction of my life. Growing up, I've never been a barkada person. That means I've always had one best friend, but I wasn't the kind, even in high school, even in college, to have a group of friends. I mean, sure, I have friends, but not so deep. Like, I think maybe the introvert in me just prefers one really deep friendship. So barkada is not very common to me. I'm a bit of a late bloomer because now I say I have my barkada. And my barkada are most of the moms in our school communities. And one of the things I am so grateful about this school, every Wednesday morning, there's a group of moms who go to campus and we pray. So we have a group called Moms in Prayer. About 20 moms come together every week. We declare scripture, and we have a class list. Today, we're going to pray for all fifth graders by name. Habang nananahimik sila sa classroom, they have no clue that there are a group of moms praying for them. And obviously, this is new to me, but this is like a barkada that's just so sharp in prayer. And every week, I just want to hang out with them and just the life of faith and how they're hanging on to God's word and praying for our school and loving on our teachers. It's just so contagious. The point of this sharing is that it's so real. Those you surround yourself with, the direction that they're going, they bring you along. And I'm so glad they brought me along that journey, because hanging out with these moms just gave me so much love for the school. And in fact, this photo you see on the right, that's me with some of the moms. I volunteered to be in the PTF, Parent-Teacher Fellowship. Mas busy pa po siya dun sa totoo kong trabaho. Every morning, almost, I'm in school. On weekends, or even at night, Elmer's like, aren't you gonna sleep yet? I have work to do for PTF. But it's the kind of thing that just fuels me, because I'm in the presence of other moms who love on the school so much. We collect old uniforms. We sell them for very cheap price, and whatever proceeds we use that to love on our teachers. We buy our teachers free breakfast, but that is the kind of community that is very unknown to me. I'm not used to barkada. But now my mommy friends are such an awesome barkada. So I can tell you hand on heart, this first point about direction is so real. And I'm glad that the quality of my friendships impacted the quality of my life. Suddenly, my life is so exciting. My circle has broadened. I've become much more prayerful. I've had the burden for my school because of the quality of my friendships. What direction are your friends taking you? Are they taking you also to the same place of, because of my friends, I want to love on the Lord more. I want to read His Word. Because of my friends, I want to be physically active. Because of my friends, I'm starting to make good choices about my finances. Or, if I'm being brutally honest, because I'm with my friends, this group of friends, I don't want to attend Koino. Because I'm with this group of my friends, I've been binge watching Netflix and using up a lot of my precious time, because this is what's important to our group. Because of my friends, I'm spending so much time on video games or what other unproductive things. Just be brutally honest, look at your list. Maybe the Lord is allowing us this moment to reflect, because God wants us to have life and have it more abundantly. But we have to be making good choices. And part of the good choices we need to make is around which people we allow to influence our lives. Which people do we surround with, and which direction are they taking us along? Because the quality of your friendships impacts the quality of your life. Now we move on to the second point. After direction, we talk about depth. Check your friendship lists. Do you have good depth in your relationships? And I'm going to explain more what good depth looks like. I like this quote that says, depth of friendship does not depend on length of acquaintance. Hindi dahil you've been going to Koino for a year now, automatically makes everybody in your group deep friends. Not because you've been hanging out with the same people for a long time makes them deep friends. It's possible they're still acquaintances. Because building depth in friendship requires intentionality. And I'd probably propose that depth in friendship can be measured if you have these two elements present. Do you have vulnerability? Are you willing to come as you are? To admit you're struggling? Because we live in a world where it's so much easier to post your highlights. You eat in a fancy restaurant, it's nice to post it as a story in your Instagram because you want your friends to know how awesome you are when you eat in fancy places. It's easy to put when your children have achievements, post #blessed, because it's so much easier to show when things are good. This is what we want to show the world. But depth of friendship requires us to be vulnerable. It's not saying we air our dirty laundry to everybody. No, but you have a core group of friends when you can admit and say, you know what? I'm struggling. You know what? I've done this sin. I can't seem to get out of it. You know what? I'm in debt and I have no clue where to start to get out. That requires deep friendships, requires us to be willing to be vulnerable. And the second point that you have depth of friendship is when you have friends who are willing to keep you accountable. You're not just friends when the going is easy, not just fair-weathered friends, but you have depth of friendship when you have friends who are willing to call you out and say, you can do better than that. I know you. That's not the best you can do. Somebody who can keep you accountable and not leave you in your dire state. And even the Bible has several passages to affirm that quality friendships, there has to be depth in them. Hindi pwedeng masaya lang, hang out lang, but there's gotta be depth in our friendships. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. A friend loves at all times, not just when things are easy, not just when things are fun. But sometimes even our friends don't know that you're already struggling because we're not willing to peel the layers and be vulnerable. So go back to your 5 friends in your list and ask yourself, am I willing to be vulnerable to any of these friends? And probably not to all 5, and that's okay. But at the very least, do you have people in your life when you can actually be vulnerable and admit, I'm not okay, and admit I'm struggling, and know that you will still be loved because your friend loves at all times? A brother is born in a time of adversity. That's how friendships, depth in friendships are built, when you're able to weather tough times, adversity, and they still stick with you. If you've been attending our koinonia, you'd be very familiar with our core values. What does CARE stand for? Confidentiality. A is authenticity. R is respect. E is engagement. But the point is, A, authenticity, is what vulnerability means. When you come to koino, we don't expect you to always just come with praise reports. It's okay to come and say, I really don't feel like coming today, but I'm just dragging my feet. My heart is not in a good place, but I'm just choosing to show up. And it's okay to be authentic. In fact, we want you to say that you're not okay when you're not okay, so that your friends can love on you. Your friends can practice being a friend at all times and love you at all times and be there for you in your time of adversity. So if maybe that's one action point you can take as you go into your koino, maybe later this week. If you're not okay, have the courage, because it takes courage to be vulnerable. But that's what you need to develop deep friendships. It's okay not to have it all put together. Feel free to peel the onion, as they say. Peel out the layers and just come with your authentic self. Because that's how you build deep friendships. Not just, we're not here for a length of acquaintance. What we want to do is to build depth of friendships. That's the first point. Are you willing to be vulnerable? Are you willing to be authentic? Are you willing to show up your real self? Even if it means you might risk rejection. Yes. And I think over time we've learned that the easier way is, self-defense. Parang whatever's the easier way so I don't get rejected, yun na lang. And that's true. That's how we kind of grew up, and that's what we've learned as the safer route. But if we truly want quality friendships that will impact the quality of your life, it takes courage to be vulnerable. The second point we did say about depth of friendship, we measure this by accountability. Do you have friends who are holding you accountable? Proverbs 27 verses 5 to 6 says, "Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses." Go back to your list. Have a look at your 5 friends. Are these friends who are willing to call things out, to openly rebuke you? It can be small things like, "Sis, parang hindi masyado match yung outfit natin today," but can say that lovingly to you. Because it's so much easier to just say nice things, but it takes real deep friendships to call out even when things are not so nice. Look at your list. You have people holding you accountable. Because better is open rebuke than hidden love. And minsan masakit because the truth can hurt. And this verse in the Bible acknowledges that you can be wounded, but wounds from a friend, if it's coming from a place of good intent, you better trust that more than just flowery words, than kisses from people who don't truly care. Again, just the beauty, a personal testimony about the beauty of accountability. This is, in fact, more in the context of professional setting for me. So, in fact, this person I'm talking about is not even in my top 5 list. But there's this lady, we were together in some development program, and we eventually ended up working together in the same team. So now we see each other more regularly in our work meetings. And so we contracted with one another, and we said, I trust you. I know we've been in the same development journey. You know what my development areas are. I know yours. Let's hold each other accountable. Because lalo na now, we see each other in meetings. We see how we both show up in meetings. You are a safe space. After every meeting, I want you to give me feedback. How did I do? What went well? And what could I do better? So it was very explicit contracting I had with this lady about our relationship. I recall there was one meeting we had with really big bosses, like the boss of my boss of my boss. So like 3 layers of very high visibility meeting. And I really prepped for that meeting. And I showed up, and I had my part of the presentation. I felt I did really, really well. And in fact, I've been getting, my boss was so proud of me. He sent me a message like, I thought you were fabulous. So like, ang laki-laki ng ulo ko ng time na yan. Oh, so good. And so as promised, this friend was also in that call. So after we put a catch-up call and said feedback session. And so I asked her, tell me, what did you think of that presentation? I mean, my boss was impressed. So I was expecting nothing less but praises from my friend. And true enough, she called out the good points. I really like how you delivered your message so clearly. Your slides were so on point. But if I can give you feedback, you have this habit of giggling at the end of your point. Like, da-da-da-da-da. I'm not sure how it sounded. But then when she said that, initial reaction ko parang, seriously? Sa dami-dami ng maganda kong ginawa, you're gonna point it out. But then, that's what accountability is, right? It was wounding. It was nakaka-hurt ng ego. So just when I thought I was so galing, here she was calling out. If you really want to show up really professional, I think just watch out. Because you have that habit of putting a giggle at the end of your talk. And I had no clue I was doing that. But now that she mentioned, I think I noticed myself more. Tama nga. I do that nga. And that undermines my credibility. I'm not appearing as credible as I could. So that was a very helpful wound from a friend. That was very helpful open rebuke. But that only happened because I gave her the license to call out. I gave her the license to give me honest feedback, and I'm glad she did. Same question. Do you have people in your life you've given license to? Because sometimes maybe all they need is to hear, it's okay, please give me feedback, please let me know. I might have blind spots. I will have blind spots. But because I trust you, can you give me open rebuke? It's okay, even if it wounds me, I trust you. Look at your 5 friends. Is there anyone you've actually contracted with? Sorry, when I say contracted, hindi po kayo magpipirmahan ng kontrata, okay? By contracted, it's just na pag-usapan, explicitly, it's okay. Can you please let me know? Like you can say, I know, mainit ang temper ko. I recognize that. I'm giving you license. When you see me na nagtataas ng boses ko in a meet or in our coin or wherever, can you let me know? Maybe that's as simple. That's what contracting looks like. Just ask for the specific area maybe where you want to get feedback and give them the license to. Because again, better is open rebuke. If they're able to call out an area of improvement, that shows you have deep friendships, and that means you have good quality friendships, and quality of your friendships impacts the quality of your life. Have a think. You have people who are holding you accountable. Are there people you're willing to be vulnerable to? Because then if you don't have, you're missing out. You know, the quality of your life could be better. But you gotta learn to be open. You gotta learn to be vulnerable and be accountable. Before I flip to the third point, the third and final point, everything we've talked about so far is in the context of you evaluating the friendships you have in your life. Kumusta yung direction that your friends are taking you? Kumusta yung depth that you have with your friends? Are they being accountable to you? Are you willing to be vulnerable to them? But let's also flip the question. How are you as a friend? You know, maybe there are some people who have listed you in their top 5. If they look at their list and assess your name against that checklist, ano kaya ang sasabihin nila? As a result of their friendship with you, which direction are you taking your friends? Are you intentionally using your friendships to draw them to good, to draw them to excellence? Or baka kayo yung tao sa list nila that say, dahil friend ko siya, mas lukewarm ako ngayon. Or dahil friend ko siya, less disciplined ako ngayon. So just also flip the question. As we talk about these guardrails, what kind of friend are you to your friends? Are you drawing them to the right direction? Are you being vulnerable yourself? Or are you letting them be vulnerable? Or kapag nag-open up na sila ng mga problema nila, you start saying, ayoko na to, masyado namang mabigat tong usapan natin, dun lang tayo sa happy, masyado ka namang nega. You know, are we the kind of friends who also are making a safe space so that people can be vulnerable with you? Are you also being a friend who can hold other people accountable, who call out your friends when you see something's wrong, you do things in love with positive intent to draw them back? So it goes both ways. This checklist is not just for you to assess against your friends, but to assess your life as a friend and whether you're living these points out as well. And that leads us to the final point, which is about difference. The question to ask here is, what difference am I making in the lives of my friends, or are my friends making in my life? But also, in the context of difference, it's eternal difference. Are you making an eternal difference in your friendships? What does that mean? It might, and I won't blame you if the conclusion you're getting so far, as we talk about the first 2 points, is dapat lahat ng 5 friends ko taga-church. Lahat dapat ng 5 friends ko Christian. Kasi sure, pag lahat ng 5 friends ko Christian, we'll all be going to the right direction. Or you might say, it's easier kapag lahat ng 5 friends ko are from my koino because from now on, I'm gonna be open in koino and therefore we will have depth. I hope this third point balances that out. I am not advocating that we only keep to our Christian bubble so that we have good friends. Hopefully, this third point balances that thought. And we've learned, as we opened up our koino, one of our koino lessons, the verse is, be careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. And part of making the most of every opportunity is making the most of the people, of the relationships that the Lord has opened up in your life. So if we just live in a Christian bubble, hoping to just take direction and depth, we are missing out on the third point. It is a question, are we intentional to build friendships with people in our lives where I can make an eternal difference? In other words, do you have friends deep enough with people who do not know Jesus yet, who are not yet in a personal relationship with Jesus? Because maybe, definitely, Jesus put you right where you are to be friends with them that they may experience Jesus through your life. So the third question to ask, look at your list. If it's just a Christian bubble, start thinking, meron pa ba na pwede kong mabuild and intentionally build relationships with? Because I know as a friend, I can make an eternal difference in the life of these friends. We want to make the most out of every opportunity. The days are evil. We got to be very single-minded about the way we live our life. We don't want to be, complacent. We don't want to be mediocre. And we're going to jump into the New Testament. This is the passage in Luke 10 where Jesus was starting to become very popular, and the teachers of the law are starting to hate him. And in Luke 10:27, an expert of the law wanted to trap Jesus, to trick Jesus with his question. And he said, "Rabbi, what must I do to gain eternal life?" But Jesus threw the question back at him and said, "What do the law say?" And the expert of the law answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said, "Yes, you've answered rightly." And the teacher of the law, parang hindi niya na-achieve yung gusto niyang gawin to trick Jesus, went on to say, "But who is my neighbor?" And we know how this story continues. Jesus explains the parable of the Good Samaritan. A lot of us are going to be very familiar with this passage. A man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, was attacked by robbers, stripped naked, ninakaw lahat, almost left for dead. And the priest came and saw him, an almost dead man, and the priest went the other way because he's probably thinking, "That's unholy. I'm about to do temple duties. I don't want to be defiled. Leave him alone." A Levite came, left him alone. And a Samaritan, who is a different person, if we had context of Jews and Samaritans, they're mortal enemies. They're very different. But this Samaritan went out of his way, took care of the man, and Jesus asked, "Who do you think is the neighbor in this story?" And the expert of the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." A lot of us must have heard the preaching of the Good Samaritan many times, but maybe one fresh insight I am taking from here. Who is your neighbor? It could be somebody who's different from you. Jews, Samaritan, they're very different. But it doesn't matter what their differences are because somebody was in need. And to love your neighbor, you look past the differences. To love your neighbor is to see the need more than the differences. And now we're asked to go and do likewise. Are there people in your circle who are different from you? O yun nga, mas madali kasi mahalin yung parang tayo. Madaling mahalin yung those who are just like us. Like the Christian bubble is so easy to love. It's much tougher to love on people who are different from us, who believe things differently from us. But if we want to tick the third thing in the friendship checklist, you are planted where you are so that you can make an eternal difference. Are we going and doing likewise? Are we loving people who are different from us because we see a need? We see that they need Jesus in their life, and we're going to love them even if they're different, even if it's tougher. To be honest, this was the point as I was preparing for this preaching a couple of weeks back. I feel like, Lord, I feel so unworthy to preach your message because I'm lacking in the third D myself. Lord, if I look at my top 5, they're all Christians. Either they're Christians from church or Christians from a Christian school. I'm in my Christian bubble, Lord. And I don't feel credible to talk about encouraging my brother to think about eternal difference when I'm not living that out myself. Our condo has a school bus, has a shuttle bus. But in the morning, most of the families, a couple of maybe 7, 8 families from our condo who go to the same school. And parang naging ICS school bus na yung shuttle bus ng condo. So, we usually line up our kids there. They take the shuttle bus to get to school. We noticed there was a new mom. Because it's a small community, we know each other. There was a new face who was bringing along somebody in the ICS uniform. So, the more natural thing to do is walk up to this person and say, "Hi, are you new to ICS? Are you new to this condo?" And apparently they just moved in from another country to Singapore a couple of weeks back. I got her number, but you can see we were struggling communicating. English was not her primary language. Pero nagkaintindihan naman kami, we ended up exchanging numbers. And I was like, "Are you going to walk your son to school?" And we had to do a lot of hand signals because I'm not sure if she was understanding what I was trying to say. long story short, it was a Wednesday. I was on my way to school because of Moms in Prayer. And I was like, do you want to come with me? We're going to pray. And I'm not sure if she really understood what I told her, but she said yes. So we ended up, the two of us went to Moms in Prayer. And we ended up praying, but we didn't get to talk anymore after that. So I'm not sure how that went for her. The next Wednesday, I see her again in the school bus, and I said, shall we go to Moms in Prayer and let us pray? But she gave me a note. She gave me a letter. And in that letter, it said, thank you, Janina. You are my first foreign friend. But I don't speak English, and I find it very hard to attend the meeting. I'm going to learn to speak English better so that I can join. It would have been, a nicer ending if I said, and then she committed to attend every week, and now we're best friends. But that's not how the story went. But the Lord was so sweet to just tell me even that, you being her first foreign friend counts for something. The point is, all that Jesus is asking us to do is love. And love can look like seeing a new face and saying, can I get your number? I don't know what in your context love looks like, but Jesus is not asking us to preach the gospel on the first try. Even the outcome is beyond us. Jesus did not ask me to make her a regular to Moms in Prayer. That wasn't my role. My role is to be her first foreign friend. My role is now to check up on her and say, do you want to have barbecue? Do you want to go out for coffee? That's my role. And if I'm just intentional to build friendships with people who are different from me, because it's tougher. Like I have an app ready when we meet, because sometimes we really cannot understand, no matter the sign language, we need an app to translate what I'm trying to tell her. It's harder. But that is a neighbor who's different from me. And that is a neighbor who needs Jesus' love. And I want to make an eternal difference because that's the way I love Jesus. So I pray as you look at your list, is it still a Christian bubble? Or are there people in your life who are different but need Jesus? And therefore, we're going to be intentional to reach out to them. We're reminded the quality of our friendships impacts the quality of our life. Direction. Are your friends taking you in the right direction? Are you taking your friends in the right direction? Depth. Are you willing to be vulnerable and accountable? And are you being so intentional in your relationships that you're making an eternal difference? So as an action, evaluate your friends, 5 friends against the checklist. What will you do differently? What truly matters? We love the Lord our God with all our mind, soul, strength. We love our neighbors as ourselves. Neighbors can be very different from us. And loving people different from us take much more effort. But the good news is God is with us. God is our friend. He has shown us the way how it's done. All we need to do is obey. All we need to do is love. All we need to do is with our words, are we making them feel the love of Jesus. And no matter the small things, God sees that. God is honored, and God is able to make that small seed of love you plant in your friend's life grow.